Hey my friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going over henna borders. They're super important for creating the foundation of your design compositions, so it's also really important to have different styles to choose from. So today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorites, so if you're ready, let's get started. This first border is a classic. So we're just going to build the framework by creating a few lines using the draping technique. So I usually like to do at least 4, and then I will go in the center and kind of fill that in so it's a nice, clean, thick line. A lot of times I like to add on just one more just to kind of give a little bit more contrast. And we went over this in last video. These are scallops and they're really good in creating a nice transition from this more linear kind of design. And I am going a little bit fast, of course, because we're doing this more in a kind of a live setting. So of course you can go as fast or slow as you need to. You just want to make sure that they are all the same height. Alright, so once you have that, this is, again, like I said, kind of like your basic go-to border. And from here, there's quite a few different things you can do to kind of jazz it up. So first thing you can do, very simple, is just add a nice row of dots. This is always a classic. And then what I like to do sometimes too, to kind of give it a little bit more spice, is I will do 3 dots and then 2 dots in the center of those and then 1 dot. And this to me is one of my favorites. I absolutely love this look. So here is kind of some options just with dots, and then just to kind of give you some other variations, I'm going to show you a few different things you can do. Another classic that I like to do are these little vines right here, or these, I guess you could say, leaves. They're just really luscious, and I think it just pairs really well with borders. And if this is a little hard, which I know it can be, getting that tapered edge, you can also do something that's a little bit easier, something that looks a little bit more like this. And I have seen it, a lot of people do a dot first, and then you can just use your cone with a little pressure and just kind of anchor it downwards like that. And so once you have this, then that is just one type of border with different options to kind of create a different feel for each one. The next border I want to show you, so we'll go ahead and create the draped lines, is more of a border that uses a vine. So again, you know, doing these, there's this option where you can go like this on either side. But of course there's always different variations, and that's what allows you to kind of create different looking designs using very similar elements. So that's one option. You can also go like this, kind of like a little apostrophe, and oscillate it with these vines. I think that looks really nice as well. And so basically this is your foundation for the center of your border, and I'm going to show you some different options you can build onto it to kind of give it a more kind of advanced looking feel to it. And what that's going to be are these little humps, I guess you could say. Don't know really what else to call them. But this is one border technique that I use all the time, especially in bridal. That just looks really good, especially like on the wrist. And then you're going to create another draped line and just fill it in. This part also, because it's a little bit more of a thicker element, it leaves a really good stain too. So that's another good reason to kind of oscillate between thin and thick elements. And then you can just go ahead and drape some more lines. This is really important, kind of breaking the thickness of this and then transitioning again into more of these scallops. So you can kind of see I've been using similar motifs or similar elements, but it already looks completely different than the first one that we did. So that is one option. And of course, you can continue it on the other side. And then you have a really cool looking border that's a little curvy, which is kind of nice too. But yeah, you don't necessarily have to do the whole thing, but I just want to give you some options. And one thing, you don't even have to use these what do you call it, these scallops. You can even do a dot, kind of like a dotted border as well. And this also looks really nice. So now these are kind of straight borders, right? But in different types of styles of henna designs, you know, there's a lot of shape to them. So I'm going to show you how you can kind of take the foundations of these and create more of like a V shape, which is another very popular style. Now I want to teach you how you can take it a step further. By making different shapes and adding your own borders to them, you can create some really fun and unique designs. So let me show you how. So I've already built it up a little bit, but the same thing with the first one we did, creating about 4 draped lines, but as you can see, I did it more in a diamond shape. But again, we're going to fill in the center just to give some variety of line width. And I usually like to do the top one with 2 thin lines. And you don't necessarily have to add scallops, but it's something that I feel like really creates a beautiful look. But you could always just do dots as well. So building it up. So this shape, to me, I feel like looks really good on the hand. So this area would be the wrist, and this would be going up on the hand. I think it looks really, really nice. But once you have that, I'm going to show you a different option of a scallop that you can do, and it's kind of like a half oval. And I like to do it a little bit thicker than the scallops. And usually when I get to the top here, I kind of do a little lotus leaf, and then I'll continue it down like this. So that is one option. And again, like I said, you can always build it up with just dots on the outside of the border. Like that. I think that looks really good too. And that gives a nice completion to this particular border style. Now, to take it even more decorative, first I'm going to create a line just to kind of give an anchor point. But one of my favorite border styles is kind of like this shape. I don't even know what you would call it, but it's kind of like the top of a temple or a mosque, but it's a really beautiful and elegant shape. So again, we're just going to be building on it with lines at first. And as you can see, I'm draping it because that really allows for the lines to look super, super clean, which is important. Because especially if you're working on someone like a hand or something, you know, their breathing and your breathing can really mess it up if you're trying to, you know, work flush to the skin. So if you can learn how to drape by lifting the cone up and having the motion forward in the direction you want to go, that honestly will be the best. So now that we have that, again, I don't know why, I just feel like this is super classic. Just having a thin line and then a really thick one and then another thin one really just adds some nice variety and makes the design pop. So I'm going to show you one of my favorites. This is something I do a lot. So once you have all of your scallops, I'm just going to do the first side first just to kind of give you an idea. I like to take the leaves that we did from the first one and kind of curve up with this type of border. So you can kind of see the direction that these leaves are going in varies as you go up the apex here. Kind of clean that one up a little bit. And then we'll go ahead, finish these scallops down here. And I was mentioning in the previous video that we did that I like to kind of switch. So instead of going from this way, left to right, I kind of like to go right to left when I'm doing these leaves here, because you're kind of following the apex of this particular pattern. So you kind of see it's moving up. Like I wouldn't really be able to do that going backwards, if that makes sense. So you really want to make sure that you're kind of moving up towards the apex, because you'll see once we get to the top here, I kind of like to do one, and then you kind of have to fill in this gap. You can either do dots, which is something I like to do sometimes, or you can do kind of a leaf that goes out. It's one of my favorites. Kind of looks royal in my opinion. But yes, I'm going to keep this area open just so I can show you another border that's similar. So we're going to go ahead and start with an anchor point here. And this one is going to be a really common one that you've probably seen before. And I'm going to show you how you can do guidelines first. So with a really light pressure, we're doing some half ovals like we did over here, but the top here is going to be more of this temple shape here. Now the hard part is getting it to line up. That will come with practice, so you'll probably want to try this over and over again on paper, especially if you're new. But it doesn't have to look exactly perfect. So once you have your guidelines, you can kind of drape over it, because henna acts in a way that if there's a little bit there, it tends to just kind of stick down to it if you drape over it. So you can kind of do some guidelines just to help yourself out there. You can always clean it away and go over again if you kind of messed up. But again, you'll want to drape around it. And I want to show you, you don't necessarily always need to do a thin line first and then a thick line. Sometimes, you know, I'll do the thick line first and then I'll trace outside with 2 thin lines, and that's also another nice variation you can do. So here we go. But yes, these temple shapes are super fun. You can use them all over, and it's just a really classic style. But it can be a little difficult to kind of get them to look the same on either side. But because you're building onto it so much, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter too much, because once you add the elements of the borders around it, it tends to kind of just, you know, the design really kind of takes away from any imperfections once you finish it completely. And we'll go like this. And I'll kind of show you side by side different options you can do. So we did leaves, so now I want to show you can do those half oval scallops that are a little bit thicker. This is one variety. But there's another style too that kind of builds on the side of this. So you would start with this shape here, and then starting kind of about halfway, you kind of go down like this. So it's similar but different. So you go from the center of that, and then you just go down towards this border here. And so it's definitely a different style, a little bit more kind of fusion, and then of course you can add some shading in there, which is what I usually like to do. Or you can even do kind of like an inner line and then a dot. So really basic elements, but you can see it really switches up the feel of it. So that's kind of two options, and I kind of want to just throw in a bonus here. It is going to be one that's just straight, but it's one that I really like, and that's going to be kind of like a dotted theme. So you start out with one line, and then I like to add dots. So these beaded chains are really, really beautiful. And once you have that down, you can kind of trace around them like this. And so similar to the one that we did with the centered line, you kind of see this one, I'm kind of creating something like this, but in a smaller version. And then I usually do kind of like a thick line like this. And then you can kind of fill it in. And then we're going to outline it. See, this is what I mean, like if you're not going to do the drape line, you might have to fix it a little bit. Which sometimes if the client you're working on has like a lot of arm hair, you won't really be able to drape because it'll just end up sticking to the hair. So in that case, you will have to work flush to the cone or flush to the paper or to the hand that you're working on. So I'll kind of show you. So the first line was draped, this one, you know, even my breathing can kind of make it a little bit more jagged, right? So it's not terrible, it can definitely be done, but I just kind of wanted to show you what that would look like. And then again, creating the scallops. And then I want to show you kind of a little bit more complex detail you can do. So you can start with a dot in the center, and then you'll do a dot a bit away from it because you're going to build onto this circle with two kind of half circles here. And then, so it's kind of like the scallops but on a curved surface. So instead of doing them straight, you're curving around these circles. And then, you know, if you follow my work, that I use these little vines all the time, but basically one leaf going out in one direction and then in the other, and then one going straight down. And when it's off to the side, you can kind of just do it like that, just so obviously if you're working on a hand, you know, the curvature, you can work onto the side of the hand. And then again, and then we'll finish off with two dots and then one dot. And then to finish this part, so I showed you how you can kind of take it a little bit more curved, right? But you can also just do straight as well. And if you are draping and something like that happens, totally easy to just fix that right up. And then, of course, gonna do one more. Create that thick line, nice and clean. favorite triangle dots. But yeah, I think for the next video, I want to go over different netting techniques because that is something that will help kind of fill in the spaces of these. But I think that would be too much obviously for this video. I think this will be more than enough. But let me know down below if you guys have any questions, comments, or any suggestions for future videos. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot from this part on borders. Alright guys, if you guys have any questions about the henna borders, leave them down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.